Okay, so welcome to the next lesson. I've done a little bit more work on the texturing, and you can see that I've got a bunch more details in here. Basically, I've just been reapplying the technique that I showed you in the last lesson on every single piece. And really, it's up to you how much time you want to spend doing that. You can do it for hours if you want to. But like I said before, and I can't stress it enough, the details are actually not that important. Everything we've done before is a lot more important to be able to get to this stage, and after that the detailing is just sort of noising it up with you know interesting pixel information to make it dense, noisy, I would call it. So, but in this lesson, we're going to stop focusing on the photo texturing, and we're going to do some final lighting, because our image is pretty much done in terms of detail, but it needs a little bit of punch. It's missing something. It doesn't look quite ready, and this will be a fun part. That's why I've actually waited until the end to do this, because when you start playing with light, you suddenly get that sort of magical thing happening, and that's what we're going to try to achieve here. Now, to do that, a thing that I like to do is actually to darken everything. And the reason that I do that is because it will give me new space in the light values to play with. So if I bring up my color picker and I check here, you can see it's pretty bright already. I mean, I still have this amount of space here until I get to the brightest value. But I'm going to darken it a little bit nonetheless. So I'm just going to go through every layer one by one and just bring up the levels and darken them a little. And maybe I can do it with the value checking layer on, so that I can actually see that I'm not ruining my values. Okay, now let's make this one a little bit darker. Okay, and then this one. And you can see that I'm bringing down the gamma, which is the middle little slider here, instead of the darks, because this tends to crush the shadows very quickly, and it sometimes destroys the image a little. So it's safer to just bring down the midtones a little, and this will make the image darker as well. And you can also just bring down the output levels, so this is a bit darker. Okay, now let's start playing with light. This is a fun part. So the first thing I'm going to do is throw some light in the background. And I know we said that we'd have a light source up here, but I've actually changed my mind, and because of these photos, I'm going to go back to the other plan that we had, which was having the light source here in the back. And because I still feel like this is our sort of main focal point, this sort of pathway, and this tower is a bit secondary. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to pick a soft round brush, and then I'm going to pick a very dark saturated color, and sunlight is a warm color, so let's pick something in the sort of orangey red kind of range, dark and saturated. And I'll set the layer to linear dodge add, and I'm also going to set my brush to linear dodge add. And that's so that when I paint on top of my brush strokes, I'm actually adding upon that as well. And you'll see how that looks. So if I just start painting here, I'm immediately getting beautiful light in the background and sort of creating a magical glow. Okay. So let's do a little of that. Not too much in the top, just maybe a little bit of spill here. Okay. So that looks quite nice. And now let's copy this layer and put it on top of everything. And we'll just empty it for a minute. But we're going to do the same so that we actually have a glow that's coming over our shapes. Kind of like a flare, I guess it would be. So something like that. And you can see how much attention that draws to that point because it's so bright. It's grabbing all the attention. So okay, so that's quite nice. And now let's do some layers in between our layers. So we've separated all these shapes and there's still space between them, so we can emphasize that a bit more by putting more layers in between those layers. So I'll just start with putting something between the back layer and these ones here. And I'll just take a simple smoke brush or a cloud brush. And let's pick a kind of a bright value. And let's just paint some smoke in here. And you can see how that's helping us separate the planes and creating more of an interesting light. Okay, and we'll do the same between the next two layers. So here, got a little bit of value separation going on. Okay, not too much. Maybe you don't want to do it where the light wouldn't hit it because the smoke would not be illuminated naturally. So maybe you want to tone it down in some areas so that it doesn't become too much. And then let's add one between these two layers as well. So like here, I can actually sort of separate this as well. Not too much. Again, keep those values under control. It's very important. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty nice. Let's do some more light effects. Just flip my canvas here. Let's do a little bit of vignetting. So let's do a little bit more darkening in the corner areas. So I'll just take my burn tool and set it to midtones. Again, the midtones is the safest range to play with. So I'll just darken this, just darken it here. And I might want to look in values while I'm doing this, just so that I have better control. Okay, so this is where there would be a lack of light on that side, so I'm just darkening it there. Oops. But of course we have bounce light from the sky and stuff, so we got to keep some information in there. Okay, that looks quite good. And maybe this one here needs a little bit of brightening, again in the midtones on this side. So we'll just brighten it up a little. It's maybe a bit too much. Try to keep it subtle. And maybe we can darken the tops a bit. That always reads nicely. And here we almost get a pure silhouette because the light is right behind it. So that when it shines in our eyes will disable our vision in terms of seeing details. So basically when you look directly at light, whatever's in front of it sort of becomes a silhouette because your eye is trying to adjust to the exposure, making things that would otherwise be well illuminated too dark in order to compensate for the bright color. So you don't need to put much detail and information in there, or at least not as much as in other parts where there's no back illumination or direct back illumination. Okay, so this is looking quite nice. I think maybe the sun's a bit too saturated, so I'll just bring that down a little, just a little bit. Okay, and maybe now as a final part we can just add some nice highlights. And for that we're going to use the color dodge mode, which is quite a nice other blending mode to use because we've been using the linear dodge. We're going to use the color dodge now. So let's see. So for example, usually when you have highlights, like specular highlights from a light source, you tend to get them sort of on a vertical line with the light source. So this here would be our area of interest where we want to put the most highlights. And so just to demonstrate it, I'll copy this layer and I'm going to turn it black. Okay, so it's completely black now. And then I'll set it to color dodge. And then I'll reset my colors here, so I've got black and white. And basically with a brush now, when I paint white, I'm color dodging, and when I paint black on a normal mode, obviously, I'm taking it away again. So that's just a nice way of painting light. So let's try to just maybe add some interesting highlights here. Okay, not too much, try to keep it subtle. And you might want to colorize it afterwards, but maybe not just yet. And let's do the same for this one here. So I make it black. There we go. Set it to color dodge. And of course the transparency needs to be locked. And now we can just sort of paint in here. And if it's too much, we can always bring down the opacity, because as you can see, it's too much. You wouldn't get such a bright illumination from that sun. So I'll just bring it down a little. It just to add a little bit of punch there, just a little. And maybe we want to colorize it so that we actually get more of a warmer kind of color. And just take it away where it feels like it doesn't belong. And you can also just use the lasso tool if you want to only apply it to certain areas, like that. It's another way of painting light. And try not to overdo it. Try to stay subtle. And again, just looking in the navigator can always help you get a sort of a different look on it, or just zooming out. See, I think it was a little bit too much because the sun's actually kind of gone already, so you wouldn't really get that much direct illumination. But it's just to add that tiny little bit. You see that tiny little bit of punch there. That's just quite nice. Looks like we have a little rogue spot here. Okay, let's just get rid of that. And if we turn off this layer, we can now just go in and do some more detailing. And this is really sort of the end of the process of the image, because this is endless and this is completely up to you for how long you want to do this. Because now you can just go in and color pick from all the colors that are there. So you've pretty much got every color you need. You can just color pick and just detail as long as you want to. And the reason that I've split up the detailing phase in brush detailing, texture detailing, and then lighting, like we're doing now, is because a nice way to continue after this point is to repeat that cycle. So I'm going in and I'm doing brush details now, as you can see. And then maybe next I'll go in and I'll add some more photo details. So I'll copy this and maybe stick it in there. So maybe set that to lighten or something and bring it down. Okay, so see, got another photo texture. And then I go back to lighting. And brush detailing. And so on. So you can just keep doing this until you're kind of happy. And you can keep doing the lighting effects as well, as long as you need to. So maybe let's say that we want to add some very specific highlights here. Maybe there's some structure here catching the light. Always, be sure to turn off the flare layer, because when you color pick, it will be influenced by that, and you'll get the wrong value. So I've got to turn it off once in a while. And just always remember your light source, where it's coming from, so that when you apply highlights, they look like they're coming from the right direction. Otherwise, it will totally kill the lighting or the illusion of lighting. So see here, I'm actually doing the underside, because if our light source is here, then that's where it would hit. And you see that works quite well. And just be subtle with it. Okay, so we've got a pretty nice and pretty finished image. And so in the next lesson, the final lesson actually, I'm just gonna go over sort of everything that we've been through, talk a little bit more, and I'm actually gonna do a tiny bit more work on this, but I'm only gonna be doing the last 3 steps of this unit that you saw and just repeating them over like I said in that order. Just, add a bit more photo texture, add a bit more light, paint a little more details, and so on and so on. And I'll show you the progress of that. It's basically just repeat, 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 repeat until you're happy with the results, because everything is actually kind of here right now, and it's up to you how much time you want to spend detailing it more and more. Okay, so let's move on to the final lesson.